So let's talk about what Stephen A. Smith had to say about Matt Ishbia. And it's just ridiculous with Stephen A. Smith. He's very hyperbolic. He says things that are way out in left field, just in my opinion, to generate ratings and get people talking about his ridiculous takes at times. Now, what he said about Matt Ishbia was premature, in my opinion, where he claims that he is on the verge of becoming the worst basketball owner ever. And context matters. He's only been an owner for 2 years. Now, I'm not going to defend the choices they've made ever since he took over, where you traded for Bradley Beal, especially after you made the second round in the playoffs and you lost in 6 games to the Denver Nuggets. And you thought going to next season, you know what, the Phoenix Suns probably just need more depth in the front court, need another point guard next to Chris Paul. But you decide, you know what, let's go out and get Bradley Beal. That was the biggest mistake they could have made because he has a no trade clause. 2 years later, you get swept against the Timberwolves last year, and you don't make the playoffs this year. And part of this is you don't have enough point guard playmaking. Yes, you brought in Tyus Jones, but it hasn't resolved the issue with your big three. This is not a good fit. Bradley Beal needs the ball. Kevin Durant needs the ball. Devin Booker needs the ball. And Devin Booker and Bradley Beal are about the same size at shooting guard. So putting them together on the basketball court creates advantages for the offense to create those post matchups where they can get in the paint, shoot right over them. And it's just not a good idea. But again, you can criticize that decision, but at the same time to say he's on the verge. And then he did apologize for the Stephen A. Smith, where he says, he could be like Donald Sterling. Now I understand Stephen A. Smith did clarify that statement, but when you first made the quotes and you had your opinions, you did not mention that whatsoever. Now Jason Williams has something to say about this, and I'm glad he did. So Jason Williams, says here, we've had Donald Sterling and Robert Sarver, but Stephen A. saying Matt Ishbia might be on the verge of becoming the worst basketball owner ever for firing coaches and spending to win. Nah, that's not analysis, that's performance. And I agree 100%. This is just clickbait. This is stuff where Stephen A. Smith's trying to stir the pot, trying to create drama, and not bring any basketball analysis to the table. Now, I understand the choices that Phoenix have made haven't been good ever since they paired Kevin Durant with Devin Booker. They haven't built a really good roster. But have they tried to go out and compete and put, players together? Yes, they have. It just hasn't worked out because the fit isn't good. Trading for Bradley Beal was a big mistake. You could have kept Ayton. You could have found some other pieces. Even getting Nurkic, like that wasn't the best idea. He doesn't move well out there. He's not a great floor spacer. And I just think the pieces around Kevin Durant and Devin Booker have not been good whatsoever. So for me, this whole situation is just another example of Stephen A. Smith just saying ridiculous stuff, in my opinion. He also said in that same segment about LeBron James, he said, "Oh, I already said how I feel." And Stephen A. Smith, in my opinion, was completely wrong. If you go look at what was said, LeBron James spent a minute and like 40 seconds talking about him, and Stephen A. Smith spent like multiple episodes. As LeBron James said, he went on a Taylor Swift tour. It's basically what he did. He's not lying there. But Stephen A. Smith, again, like, I don't like this dude. I think sometimes he just crosses the line with different things he says. And, he's not wrong for what he said. Williams called out Smith for not naming a former player who criticized Steph Curry. Obviously, the heated debate about Kyrie Irving. We know about what he said about Kyrie with the vaccine situation. He also, didn't have the same energy for Amazon when he reposted that movie on Twitter. He just constantly bashed Kyrie. And then when he got to the NBA Finals, the energy was so different. The Kawhi Leonard situation. We remember where you said Kawhi should retire. Now look at him the first 2 games of this playoffs. He's been, game 1, he was okay because he turned the ball over a lot, but he was really good in game 2. Obviously, Kawhi needs to stay healthy, but Kawhi has a resume. He's got 2 championships. He has a Finals MVP. To disrespect him that way is going too far. And Stephen A. Smith is known for this behavior. So again, I'm glad that Jason Williams said something. If they had a private conversation where they were going to talk about it on his podcast, maybe that happened, maybe it didn't. But I have no problem with Jason Williams calling him out publicly because Stephen A. Smith does it publicly. If he complains like, "Oh, you should have came to me in private and said something," no. Like, if you're going to be a public figure and say something out in the open, and Stephen A. Smith tries this all the time. Well, I want to handle it in private, but you say it to your audience. So if people are responding in a public way, fair game. So I just don't like the hypocrisy there. And again, it's been bumpy, of course. It hasn't been good. There's been a lot of like questions, but let's not act like this is the worst owner ever. Like there's the Wizards owner He's been there since 2010. I have the name right in front of me here. Where is it? We have here Ted Leonsis. I don't know if I said that right. He's been there since 2010. I know the Wizards made the playoffs, I believe, in 2017. I think they made another year with Westbrook. I think John Wall and I know Bradley Beal and John Wall made the second round. But had they made a conference finals, would you say they're on the same playing field as the Suns? I mean, the Suns in the past made the NBA finals this decade. I know he wasn't the owner then, but he's only been in the league for 2 years. I think that's a bit hyperbolic. Let's talk about the Sacramento Kings owner, Vivek Ranadive. The Kings just got good, and they blew up the roster. They traded Fox, and they're probably going to move off Sabonis or DeRozan. They're not a great team. They're fun to watch, but not title contenders. Before 2 years ago, they made the first round of the playoffs. Kings had a playoff drought, and you have this owner here in Sacramento. You could say he's really bad, right? So you can't just say that someone in 2 years, ever since they've bought a team, they're on the verge of being the worst ever. I think that's premature. Let's give it 5 to 10 years before we make these conclusions and these wild accusations, because we know that Bradley Beal is eventually going to get traded. Kevin Durant's going to get moved. I'm sure Devin Booker is going to get traded, and they'll get draft capital, and they'll get a chance to rebuild and be competitive again. That's how it works in the NBA. And the next version of the Phoenix Suns, whenever that happens, whether it's 3 or 4 years from now, because it takes time to build up a core roster. If it's competing and they're making playoff runs, then isn't that successful? So I just don't get the the dramatic statements that Stephen A. Smith makes. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. And it's just immature, in my opinion. So whether you agree or disagree, that's your prerogative. You can disagree with my opinion. But Stephen A. Smith just has a bad habit of just making outlandish statements that don't pertain to just basketball and not giving proper analysis. Like, let's talk about what's going on in the Phoenix Suns. They just made a bad move by getting Bradley Beal with that no trade clause. That just wasn't a good idea. And he's not a good fit with the Suns. Those are just facts. They don't have a reliable point guard. I know Tyus Jones came this year, but they should have kept Chris Paul and see what happened with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. And if it didn't work out, you go get a point guard. And you still had DeAndre Ayton on. And now I know they had their contract situation. Maybe they still would have moved off Ayton. But I would have not gotten Nurkic. I don't think he was the right fit, because you need more floor spacers and guys who can be more lateral on defense. That's the era of the NBA we're in. So, yeah, love to hear your thoughts about this whole situation, about Stephen A. Smith saying that the Phoenix Suns owner is going to be, or on the verge of being, the worst ever. What are your thoughts about Jason Williams had to say? Whose side are you on? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.